The following lesson is linked to Learning Outcome 2, Reading and Viewing. It addresses the assessment standard that requires learners to describe plot, subplot, character portrayal, conflict, and dramatic purpose. A play usually only lasts an hour or two. So if a playwright wants to create action, drama and suspense, he or she doesn't have time to waste on insignificant details. This also means that as an audience member, we need to realize that every part of the story is included for a reason. Today's lesson focuses on plot and timeline, and we'll be looking at which details and events playwright James Ngobo included in the play The Suitcase to make it an action-packed hour. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define the terms plot and timeline and explain why the plot of The Suitcase was arranged in a certain way. So what exactly is the plot? Here's the definition. Plot refers to the events that occur in a story or what happens in the story. One of the elements of a plot is the timeline. A timeline is a sequence of related events in the order in which they occurred over time. Even though plot and timeline both refer to the events that occur in a story, they're not synonyms. Here's how it works. Time is always constant. One moment follows the next, and on a timeline, one event follows the next. If a play tells a story in chronological order, then the plot and the timeline will move along together. However, some plays are not quite this simple. Some plays start at the end of the story or with the last event on the timeline, and then they spend the rest of the play explaining how the characters got to be in that final situation. And in other plays, the characters swap between being in the present and flashing back to events that occurred in the past. Now, the timeline of a play or story can cover any length of time. The plot may describe just one day in someone's life, or the plot could span a number of decades. Here is a synopsis of the plot of the play The Suitcase. As you watch it, think about how long a timeline it covers and see if you can guess how the plot is structured. Mnetisi Shabangu, who acts in the play, will help tell the story as we watch the clips. The play opens with a dramatic scene. A man, Dimi, is sitting on a bench. Next to him is a brown suitcase.
It's a chance, a desperate chance.
The location changes for the next scene, and we are introduced to two other characters, Namhla and Lovoyo. Namhla is making beer for the ancestors, and Lovoyo asks about his father Timi, and eventually Namhla tells the story.
Timi comes to Mkumbane because he wants to, like anybody else, he wants to have a better life. And then he's an honest man who comes to the city and look for a work honestly,
At first, Dimi is upbeat and positive about going out and getting work.
I'm looking for a peace job. Okay, no problem. I will come back tomorrow. Have your day nice. Hello. Hey, it's small but it's spicy, yeah?
But then at the same time, things are not, they say the grass is not always greener on the other side. So he went through a lot of difficulties in finding a job. And then there was always this voice in his head that kept on telling him,
one of these days I'm going to take a desperate chance. I won't hesitate if it presents itself to me.
Many men have gotten rich by sheer naked chance. Could it just be that I am destined for such a chance?
And that sort of like become his motive all the time, his motive. And then it begins to lose the innocence now.
At this stage, Dimi has reached rock bottom, and even the tenderness and love that he and Namhla once shared has begun to disintegrate.
Let me go out to look for work. It doesn't matter what. A domestic, a washerwoman, something. Our sages say even where there's no pot to boil, there should be fire.
If you think I'm gonna let you go out there and face the humiliation I deal with every day, then you suck in.
I am still strong. I can't watch you go through this alone. This is no time for pride, Dee. Tomorrow I will go, and that's that.
So this kind of criminal mentalities creeps into his kind of honesty and things like that, yeah. And then until he finds the suitcase in the bus, and then he thought there should be something valuable in there. This is my break, you know.
God is my witness.
Timmy felt a great relief. He had won. The bus came to a stop, and he alighted.
From the moment Dimi decides to claim the suitcase, things changed dramatically, and he starts to regret the decision. He had convinced the people on the bus that it was his suitcase, but when the police catch up with him, he has second thoughts.
Hey! What is in the suitcase?
Things.
Things. What things?
My things.
Is
This next scene is where we realize that Dimi's desperation has caused something terrible to occur. The policeman finds a dead baby in the suitcase and assumes Dimi is responsible for its death.
Whose suitcase is that?
It's mine.
So you have your things in there.
No, it's my wife's things.
What are they?
I think she has some.
You think? Why do you say you think?
Well, I didn't see her paper.
Can you recognize your wife?
Yes.
Is this your wife? And this? And this? Is this also your wife?
No!
Dimi gets arrested. Because of all his lies, no one is now willing to believe that the suitcase was not his and that he was only taking a desperate chance. And as for Namhla, she waits for Dimi all night, getting more and more concerned. Then the last scene takes us back to the location at the beginning of the play, where Namhla is speaking to Lovoyo. So, now that you've seen the synopsis, let's see if you can answer these questions. How long do you think the timeline of this play is? How has the plot been structured? The timeline starts when Dimi and Namhla arrive in the city and ends where Lovoyo goes to the city to perform the ritual at Dimi's grave. We know when Dimi and Namhla went to the city, before Namhla was pregnant, and by the end of the story, her son Lovoyo is a grown man. So, from that we can estimate that the timeline must span about 20 to 25 years, And although the playwright doesn't cover 25 years worth of events in detail, he focuses on key elements that occurred in this time. As far as the plot is concerned, you could describe it as folding back on itself. The play starts and ends in the same place, as if the events occurred in a circle. The play begins in the present time, when Namhla is being questioned by her son Lovoyo. The story then goes back in time, and we see what has brought Namhla to this day. We find out about Lovoyo's parents, Dimi and Namhla, going to the city to search for a better life. We see her when she is pregnant with Lovoyo. And we see her holding her baby after having lost her husband. At the end of the play, we are back in the present day. Lovoyo, Namhla's son, is now an adult, and he now knows the story of how he came into the world and how he came to be raised by just his mother. Why do you think James Ngobo chose to present the plot of the play in this fold-over way?
The beginning of the story, it was basically what I did was to create a bracket. And the bracket had a lot to do with where I wanted the story to go. And in the beginning of the play, it's the young boy's quest for his father's life, for his surname, for what's to come in his life. And his mother has all the answers. And when the play starts, she just expects him to get up and perform the ritual. And he says, I don't know this man, I can't just do this. And when she starts telling them the story, what the audience is watching as the play is what she's telling him on the graveyard. And that is why then at the end, we go back. Once all the answers have been given to him, he then is willing to perform the ritual.
In real life, it's sometimes difficult to see how particular events came about and what causes relate to these events or results. But in a play, the playwright chooses events that are important and arranges these in a way that they take on a particular meaning and help to show how one event led to the next. Here is your task for today. The suitcase begins by showing us Dimi deciding to steal the case.
It's a chance. A desperate chance.
Now write a paragraph in which you explain why you think this incident is shown at the beginning of the play, even though this is not the first event on the timeline. Please join us for the next lesson when we'll discuss the plot further and learn about the dramatic structure. See you then.